All right. What do you guys think as far as this weekend? What are you looking to see in this preseason game? Sunday at 1 o'clock on the West Coast, 4 o'clock on the East Coast, 3 o'clock in the Central Time Zone. It will be Niners Raiders. What are you guys expecting to see? What are you hoping to see? What do you want to see in that game?
See what
What do
you've
you
done,
need to
Vish?
see?
You've given Larry a time complex. Now he has to list every time zone that the game is being played in. You've done this. Just know
2
that.
p.m. Mountain Time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. For me, I really wanted to see how things go down in the trenches. It doesn't look like, Drake Jackson's going to play. Obviously, we know Bosa's not going to be there. It's funny because Larry, I know that I've heard you talk about the edge rushers and maybe lack of depth there and how they should go out and sign somebody. And you were talking about this before Yannick got signed. And my stance was, yeah, I think that does seem like the quote unquote glaring weakness right now, but maybe they have something that we're not quite sure of. And so they should save that money as long as they can while they're trying to figure this out. Well, now we're really about to find out what the depth looks like behind those guys because neither of them are going to play. And I think that that's also a good thing that we can figure some of this out. Now, I do think Drake Jackson could use some snaps, so hopefully he gets healthy soon. But there are some guys who have been lighting it up a little bit in practice that now we get to see what they're made of if they can put things together in a game. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And then if most of that starting offensive line plays, two guys that I'm looking at, Spencer Burford, really more so because he's kind of struggled in my opinion, at least the 5 days I was there. I think he struggled quite a bit and I was looking forward to him taking that next step this year. And he still might do that, but early on things I think have been a little bit rough for him. And then also McKivitz. What does he look like? Because in the one-on-ones, for the most part, he's looked good. Then once they hit the 11 on 11s, almost every day he's given up a sack. So what does it look like from his standpoint? Can he hold up? What are the concerns in the trenches, which really outside of quarterback, that's the most important areas. So I'm curious to see what those look like come Sunday.
That's an interesting one. Just to inject something, Vish, I definitely want you to jump in before I give my answer. But I was talking to one of the broadcasters for the Niners, and they were saying that, or he was saying that he thinks that even though Jalen Moore's improved and the veteran priors in this camp and McKivitz, he feels really good about McKivitz. That swing tackle is a real vital position. And this guy thought that based on what he had seen, that the swing tackle most likely was going to come from without, not from within, that it's going to be, that it's on whoever
it's
their third tackle. Yeah. It's going
to deal where they
it's going to be
somebody late in camp.
Yeah. And I don't know who. I mean, I like Lael Collins from Cincinnati, Deontay Smith from Cincinnati. I don't know. I don't know who's going to get cut and who they like, especially when you're talking about you're talking about a tackle that's good enough to play, but also bad enough to potentially get cut or not be of value to his current team. So who knows? That's one of those in-between things. But I thought that was interesting because that's kind of what my eyes are telling me as well, that the tackle options, while there's some good prospects there, Leroy Watson's improved and Jalen Moore looks okay. And I saw Pryor win some one-on-ones this week. But I just think they need to upgrade there. I think they need a better player than those options.
Yeah, I'm with you. By the way, adding to that, I think the best place to look, and I actually haven't done the research on it. I will for another show, and perhaps we can talk about it more in depth. But I think the best place to look for these kinds of tackles is look at the places where new coaches were hired, right? Because if there's a scheme shift with a lot of these offensive linemen, that's when you can get a Laken Tomlinson, because the Lions, shift their scheme to this power scheme and all of that. And all of a sudden you have this athletic offensive lineman who's a fit for the zone scheme, but the Lions don't value him and you get him, right? And so that's the kind of thing that I would be looking out for. Again, I haven't done the research, so I have to see that. What I'm looking most forward to in this preseason game, I am with you, Jesse, on looking at the defensive line. I also would like to see the offensive line, though I think it's going to be the earliest point that we're going to get a look at the offensive line. So I don't have the highest expectations for how offensive lines are going to look pretty much across the board in week 1 of the preseason. So that's there. I'm excited to see the running backs and the linebackers, right? We've been promised so much depth between these two positions. These are two positions that's very easy to spot the talented players. It's easy to spot who's playing well and who isn't in preseason because not a lot changes in their roles in what they do in preseason, right? They kind of play their position almost the exact way they would in the regular season and all of that. There's so much depth. There's so much talent. Last year, we got to see it with Marcelino late. We got to see it with Jordan Mason. We got to see it with these guys. I want to see the kind of shape these guys are in. I want to see how physical they are. I want to see how fast they are. And they've been thudding in camp, but they haven't like really hit anybody. I want to see them, how ready they are to hit and how physical these guys really are. So those are the two positions that I'm most excited to see.
I definitely want to see those backs. I mean, J.P. Mason and Ty Davis-Price, I think, have the potential to be excellent NFL backs. You know, they're not going to beat out McCaffrey, but they might beat out Mitchell, you know, and both those guys are power runners. I mean, there was a run. I was standing next to Grant at practice, I think, I guess it was Tuesday, right? The last practice. And J.P. Mason had this run. Maybe it was Monday. J.P. Mason had this run where he ran right, cut back left, ran right again, and he kept going. And it wasn't, you know, some of those runs you get tagged down and you keep going. This was one of those runs where he hadn't been tagged down. So he kept running, and then he kept running, and he kept running. And then he busted out to the sideline. He's down the sideline. And I'm like, damn. This guy looks incredible. Grant's like, man, I don't remember seeing that from this guy last year. And I agree. I mean, I agreed with him. I mean, to me, last year he was a power back, a one cut and go kind of a guy. Now you're seeing TDP and Mason, multiple cuts, exploding in and out of those cuts, longer runs, running inside, getting to the edge. I mean, I'm really eager to see those two. To me, it's those two guys and Lance. I want to see Trey Lance do on television what I've seen him do in practice, which is at times look like the best quarterback on the field. And I think there's so many people, especially in my chat, of course, guys, because for whatever reason I'm attracting this clientele. But you know, there's a lot of anti-Trey for sure. But what I've seen this camp is just a guy who has improved dramatically from last year. And I see it in his ball. I see it in his completion percentage. I see it in how and when he runs compared to last year. Last year, he ran a lot, but it was, I missed my window and there's nothing left to do but run, right? This year, he's not running because he's missing the window. This year, he's running because he's watched Brock Purdy and he understands that it doesn't matter how it looks. All that matters is that you move the team. Move the team, get first downs. So if you get to 3rd and 3 or 4th and 3 and you drop back to pass, tuck it away and run it. That's when I want him to run. I want him to run for first downs. I don't want him to pick and slide like he's a running back or a fullback trying to, you know, power between the tackles. So I love the way he's running and when he's running. I like the way his deep ball looks.